Yo, what is up? I hope you're having an amazing day today. It is another chilly day in Texas, and today is Halloween. Happy Halloween. I hope everybody is safe out there. So, with the theme of Halloween being a scary and spooky holiday, today we're going to talk about fear. What is fear? What role does fear play in our lives? What's the difference between micro and macro fears? And how can we relinquish fears? How can we face our fears? How can we actually release the fears that we hold? So, what is fear? I believe most people, including myself, are ran by fear. We spend every day of our lives holding a lot of fears, limiting beliefs, and just thoughts and emotions and feelings that really hold us back from truly being free and being happy. And ultimately, I believe that fear is imaginary. I don't think that fear is a sort of concrete thing that you can tangibly touch. For example, right now, in your direct experience, I want you to just be present, be completely present where you are, be completely conscious of this moment, of your body, how you're feeling, and just sort of look into the world right now and notice, is there any fear? Is there anything to be feared right now in your direct experience? Can you see fear? Is there something right now that is imposing a threat? Is there something right now that is a clear, tangible fear, example of fear? Or is reality itself pretty loving, pretty free, pretty non-fearful? It's ultimately just truly accepting, truly embodying. It's kind of just pure being, and there's not really fear. So what would that mean if fear is actually imaginary? That's weird. That's because I know me personally, I experience a lot of fear, and a lot of my fears, they feel real. They have an effect on me. I will feel scared. I'll have anxiety. I'll overthink over and over and over. I can literally experience like shaking in my body and sweaty hands and so many different emotions and thoughts that are caused by fear. But if fear is ultimately imaginary, then am I just sort of tricking myself? Is this just sort of my mind creating this idea of fear that if we let go of that, if we become truly present, is non-existent? You know what I mean? That's kind of interesting. That's something I'd pass off to you. Is fear imaginary? Is all fear imaginary? So ultimately, what purpose does fear play in our lives? I believe fear is intended to keep us alive. Fear is intended to maintain survival, and that can be survival of our physical bodies, that can be survival of our self-image, that can be survival of the status quo, of culture, of tradition, of even something like a business. You know what I mean? I believe fear is sprinkled in all survival endeavors. Whatever is trying to be maintained. Anything that threatens that is going to arise fear. So if you identify with your physical body, what are you going to be scared of? You're going to be scared of something that can hurt your physical body, because that's what you identify with. Let's say you have a business. If you have a business that you cling to, that you identify with, that you're trying to maintain. If you want a business, I'm sure you want to maintain it. What is going to arise fear? Anything that will jeopardize that business, anything that will possibly, make your business go bankrupt, any sort of competition that could run your business out of water. That's going to bring up fear if you have truly, created an identity out of this business. You know what I mean? Ultimately, another point is that I believe fear is worry about the future. You know what I mean? Fear is basically worry about the future and is not necessarily grounded in this moment. And I bet if you heard, which was something that I want you to do, I was going to talk about this at the end of the video, but I want you to get a list and I want you to write out, what are my fears? What do I fear the most in life? What are my macro fears? What are my micro fears? We're going to also go into that. But I believe if you look at a lot of your fears, you're going to notice that a lot of them are fears about the future. You know what I mean? They are not grounded in the now. So for example, something like, what if I go to work and I get fired today, for some reason, you know what I mean? That's something that could really paralyze you in thought, because you're completely overthinking. Oh my God, what if my boss is super mad at me? What if I get there and he just starts yelling at me? Then I get fired, and then I lose my job, and then I'm not able to to pay for my child to go to school. Then we might have to be homeless, and then this might happen, and that might happen. Then we're going to be on the streets, and then my child might starve to death. And oh my goodness, that's a fabrication of your mind. Not to say that couldn't happen. Maybe you could get fired. Maybe you could lose your job, and all of these negative effects could happen. But ultimately, you don't know. And ultimately, that is your mind creating a story to I feel like to ultimately protect you. You know what I mean? To ultimately try to try to maintain this survival, but it's being threatened. You know what I mean? It's being threatened by the potential of something that could happen in the future. And something that I've noticed, because I have experienced a lot of fear within so many different areas, is that whatever I fear, whenever I go and I actually face it, it's usually not even close to how I imagined it. It's always like nothing bad ever happens. That's what's so crazy to me, is every time I truly fear something, when I'm actually in it, and I go and I talk to my boss, or I go and, for example, when I was boxing, I used to fear fighting and getting into the ring. Every time I step into the ring, every time I talk to my boss, every time I face the fear, it was never how I imagined it. It was never an actual fearful situation, even something like boxing. Boxing was something that arose so much fear. Every time I had to go to a gym and spar, every time I had to actually compete and step into a ring, I had a lot of fear of getting beat up, of getting hurt, of dying, of being embarrassed, of losing, of making a fool out of myself, of getting injured, of getting brain damage, of fighting someone bigger than me, of stronger than me, or whatever. And even if I was in the ring and I was let's say I was even getting beat up, or I was getting hurt, or there was someone that was bigger and stronger than me, when I was actually directly in it, it wasn't a fearful situation. It was just another form of direct experience. It was just me being present in the moment and just going through whatever I was going through. It wasn't an actual, like, when I'm in it, like, oh my God, I'm so scared. It was just directly experienced, compared to beforehand when I was thinking about the future. I was paralyzing myself. Like, I used to be so, it would take over my whole entire body, my mind, the whole entire day. If I had to go spar at night, my whole day at work, I had a different mood. I had a different attitude. I was constantly in this thought loop of all of these negative things that could happen, when in reality, most of the times, it went really well. I would perform really well. I might have been the one beating the person up or whatever. Like, it was always much more different. It was always much different, and there was no fear to be dealt with in the actual moment. And that just sort of leads into how to relinquish fear. There's quite a few different ways. Number one is to face it directly. If you have fear, you need to face it directly. So, for example, let's say, and this is more of like a micro fear. If you have the fear of approaching a woman, or a man, if there's somebody that you are attracted to and you want to go approach them, but you have all these fears. Oh, what if they don't like me? What if I make a fool out of myself? What if they think I'm ugly? What if this? What if that? Face it directly. Go talk to them. Hey, how are you? Whatever, go and talk to them directly, because that's ultimately the only way. There's not really a shortcut to dealing with fear other than directly facing it head on, to directly experience what you're scared of. And that's ultimately what has already happened in your life. I'm sure there have been things that you've been scared about when you were younger. For example, maybe being scared of the dark, and as you got older and you directly experienced the dark, you realized, oh, there's nothing to really be scared about. I mean, maybe you are still scared of the dark, but still, basically, like, throughout our lives, we continue to experience things that we're ultimately scared of, that we're no longer scared of, because when we directly experience them, we can just see them like for what they are, and they're no longer frightening. They're no longer fearful. They're just another form of direct experience. So a way to look at life is just over time, throughout our whole entire life, to continually experience the things that we're scared of until they just become another form of direct experience. Just as me, for example, talking in front of the camera right now, I'm not scared to do this. I don't have any fear of doing this. But maybe something like public speaking in front of a crowd of people, I might have fear of doing that because I've never done it before. I might what if they judge me? What if this happens? What if that happens? But then after I do it, after I go and I public speak and I do it multiple times and I get comfortable within the process, then it no longer becomes a fear. It just becomes another form of direct experience. So one of the biggest ways, and like the way to deal with fear, is to face it head on. But there are some other things that you can do that can help you deal with these things. Number one is mindfulness. Mindfulness. I highly recommend starting a daily mindfulness meditation practice. I have a video on my channel talking about how to start a daily mindfulness meditation practice. There are other videos on YouTube that you can find as well. But ultimately, becoming mindful of what fear feels like, because fear is ultimately a feeling in your body that is encompassed by thoughts, by emotions, by literal tension and feelings in your body. So whenever a fear comes up, instead of just reacting to it, notice it, become mindful, become conscious, and literally scan and feel what does this fear feel like? What thoughts am I having? What emotions am I feeling? What bodily sensations am I having? What does it actually feel like? And continually become more and more mindful of that. And then just the more mindful that you become, as it arises, you can feel it for what it is, and it no longer paralyzes you. You actually sort of gain a sort of control, in the sense that you can just notice it for what it is, instead of reacting to it as something that's happening to you. So a mindfulness meditation is huge. Simply let it go. I know that sounds super simple, and it is. You know what I mean? If you have fear of something, just try letting it go. Just try letting it go. And I know it's easier said than done, but that's another practice that you can do, not only to your fears, but to a lot of things in your life. To just let it go. If you feel anxious, if you feel angry, if you're mad about a situation, if you got cut off on a road or something, just let it go. Just let it go, and just return to that space of love. And I believe you can do that with your fears as well, is just to continually let them go. Another thing is contemplating your fears, getting a journal and writing down, what are my fears? What are my biggest fears? What am I fearful of? Why? And then why am I scared of this? What role is this fear playing in my life? You know what I mean? Do that. Do that consistently, especially if you have a lot of fears and you notice that you're constantly overthinking. Write down these things, because as you write them down, you're able to really dissect, and you're able to really sort of see for yourself and come up with insights that you wouldn't traditionally stumble upon just by thinking. You know, like journaling in general is just a really great way to really, face your fears. What is the difference between micro and macro fears? So micro fears are, I mean, it's just what it sounds, like macro fears are more, bigger fears that have a lot more sort of real life consequences, such as the fear of death, the fear of losing a loved one, like the fear of some serious confrontation or something, or maybe even like the fear of like some sort of like a terrorist attack or something like that. That's something that is pretty micro. Pretty macro. It would have some pretty real life consequences that could be pretty detrimental. Those are those have a big role in our lives, but those are more sporadic situations. Those aren't what actually have the biggest impact on our life. The micro fears are the fears that are just sort of subconsciously running in the background, that we don't even notice or even call fears, but they can completely run our lives. Such as, for example, the fear of leaving the TV on, or the fear that you might be late to work, or the fear that you might have said the wrong thing in a conversation or through text, or the fear of what somebody might think about you. And that right there is another big fear that I personally experience a lot. Is a lot of my fears are either based in the future, or they're based about what somebody might think about me. And that's such a sort of irrational fear to have, because not to call it irrational in the fact that it's wrong or anything like that, but just the fact that when you really see it for what it is, like, I'm worrying about what somebody else thinks about, what in somebody else's head, what they might think about me. That doesn't have any effect. You know what I mean? That doesn't have any relevance to my life. It should not matter what other people think about us, because they are not us. You know what I mean? We are we are the sort of dictators of our lives. There's no reason to sort of let the let the hypothetical thought of somebody else. And if we go deeper than that, if we come from from a non-dual state, and that we're all one, who's being judged? Who's the one thinking about you? We're all one. We're all connected. So are you scared of a part of yourself thinking about you? Are you scared of you thinking about yourself? You know what I mean? It's ultimately fear about it's ultimately sort of fear within you. You know what I mean? Fear I feel like worrying about what somebody else thinks about you. It isn't what the other person thinks about you. It's what you might think about yourself. It's the sort of inner demons or the sort of unsureness, the instability within yourself that doesn't truly leave you feeling grounded. Because I believe if you're truly grounded in this moment and you're completely free and you're completely detached and you're just truly present, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to judge. There's nothing to worry about of what another person might think about you or anything like that. It's just, you're just existence. You're just being present. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would just, I know I'm a little all over the place on this one. I've been having to cut the videos. I've been messing up and stuff. But so I would encourage you to get a journal and to write out your fears, write out your micro fears, write out your macro fears. And over time, just try to be as mindful as you can of your fears, especially of your micro fears, because your micro fears are the ones that really, really run your life in the background and can have a much bigger impact that you might think. So day by day, become mindful, write out your fears and do your best to face them directly, to try and let them go, to contemplate and journal them and analyze them and to see what role, what purpose they are serving in your life, and also do a mindfulness meditation practice to work on dealing with your fears and sitting with them and being present with them. So I'm just checking out my notes. Fear is alive and fear and happy. And yeah, it's just fear. I feel like fear limits us from truly being happy. Fear limits us from truly being free. I have experienced so much fear, and I continue to on a day-to-day basis, but I especially like micro fears, but I continually try to work through them because I sort of recognize how limiting they are and just how easy it is to let them go. And just when you become present right now, that's the sort of biggest takeaway, is just in this moment right now, what is there to fear? And it's just like nothing. There's just silence. You know what I mean? There's nothing to, there's no threat right now. Everything is just cool, calm, and collected, but my mind can generate all of these problems and can cause me to suffer. And I believe a lot of us, everybody that we see, we're walking around with fear, with just baggage, with trauma, with tension, with so many different things that limit us from being the true, light, happy, loving beings that we can be. So that is it. That is it for this video. I believe today was day 9 of the 30 videos in 30 days. I hope you enjoyed. Drop a like, leave a comment in the comment section below, subscribe and hit that bell notification. And I just hope you guys have an amazing day. Again, I hope you have a very safe Halloween. Be safe out there, and I just hope you have an amazing day. Peace.